Hello, all my fellow true crime fans. Welcome, or welcome back, to Money, Murder, Mayhem. Today, I'll be sharing the story of Gregory Graf, who was convicted of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse after the jury assigned to his case deliberated for less than 10 minutes. What evidence did the jury see that convinced them so thoroughly that they were able to reach a verdict in less time than it takes to wash a load of laundry? Did their decision come too hastily? Or was the crime Gregory committed so egregious that it justifies sentencing the 54-year-old to spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole? Did the fact that the victim was Gregory's 33-year-old stepdaughter, Jessica Paget, have anything to do with their snap judgment? The only way to even begin to understand is by diving into the story yourself. I'll never forget the day in 1997 when I married my wife, Mrs. Danielle Graf. Everyone knows that marriage changes things. That wedding was more than just a union between me and Danielle, though. That day, I legally and officially took on the role of stepfather to my 17-year-old stepdaughter, Jessica Paget. Sometimes families have trouble blending, but me and Jessica got along well. Sure, everyone gets into their arguments every now and then. No marriage is perfect. No relationship between a stepfather and his stepdaughter is flawless. Still, we had a good life. I even owned my own business, a fencing company I ran on our property in Northampton County, Pennsylvania. Sadly, a combination of random events created a bad mix on November 21st of 2014, resulting in the destruction of the life I once loved. The tragedy was set in motion when my wife went on that trip to Florida, leaving me alone with my increasingly relentless thoughts of a more sexual nature. I blame the porn I was watching, maybe a little too much of. Those kinds of videos can twist anyone's mind. Men get obsessed with it all the time. With my wife gone, women on the screen, women I couldn't touch soon weren't enough to satisfy my desperate desires. I tried to do the right thing to fight my urges. I went to Playtime Boutique in Allentown that morning to pick up a few toys to use. I spent a few minutes studying the shelves and picked out 2 toys before heading back home to go about my day like normal. To enhance the experience, I added a few substances to the mix. Sexual thoughts took over my mind, dragging me down to dark places as I obsessed over fantasies that no man should have. It was bad timing. I swear, nothing but that. I never planned to attack anyone that day. But when my stepdaughter stopped by to use my fax machine, Jessica was 33 years old at the time. She had 3 children and worked at a daycare. My point is, she was a full-grown woman. I was a man with urges and impulses I couldn't ignore. I welcomed her into my house like usual, but the dark thoughts grew louder as I fantasized about having sex with my stepdaughter. I came up from behind her when she wasn't looking and touched her soft skin. She froze and then brushed me off coldly and started to leave in a hurry. Something snapped in my brain. The thought of her leaving without even giving me a chance to fulfill my fantasies, I just couldn't stand it. The urges tortured me. To silence the voices, I grabbed one of my guns and shot Jessica in the back of her head. As she fell to the floor, everything became a blurry, fuzzy mess. Blood splattered everywhere. My mind spun in a crazed panic. I was so terrified that I completely lost it. The demon inside took over. I dragged Jessica's body into the bedroom I shared with my wife and set up my video camera. I pushed the record and started undressing Jessica. Seeing Jessica's naked body stirred something repulsive within me. I used her corpse to get out my twisted desires. Once I was done, I couldn't stand the sight of her, the evidence of the crime I had committed. So, I buried her in the backyard behind a shed. I'm no monster. I couldn't sleep all that night, haunted by what I had done to Jessica. I finally gave up on trying to sleep and got out of bed around 4:30 a.m. Then, I obsessively cleaned everything at least 50 times. Of course, it wasn't like Jessica just to take off without telling anyone, so it didn't take long for her to be reported missing. The search lasted for 5 days. I was such a mess that I couldn't keep my story straight. When the investigators interrogated me, that is. Once their minds were made up, they focused on me like hound dogs catching the scent of a fox. On the day before Thanksgiving 2014, the investigators dug up the land on our property. They found Jessica's body in the shallow grave I laid her in. I was arrested and interrogated again. The investigators found the tapes I made. There was no denying I did it. So, I confessed to the horrible crime I committed. Oh man, I've wished every day since it happened that I had gotten help before things went the way they did. I lost everything after I was charged with first-degree murder for Jessica's death. My wife divorced me. I lost my business, my home, even my dogs. The thing is, I don't even really know why I did it. I'm not really a bad guy. Before that day, I never once thought that I was even capable of doing anything like that. I just snapped and lost everything because of it. A little less than a year later, in November 2015, I was brought to trial before a Northampton County jury. The defense attorney I hired, Jack McMahon, said that the 8 videos the prosecutor planned to show the jury were proof enough that I'd killed Jessica and assaulted her corpse. The attorney had struggled to no end coming up with a defense for me. In the end, he kept it simple. It was clear that I murdered Jessica, but he argued that I should be charged with third-degree murder instead of first-degree, since it's not like I planned it. Her murder wasn't premeditated. I never meant to kill Jessica. Jack felt like it was such a lost cause that he didn't even call a single witness up to the stand in my defense. He stuck to arguing that something within me just snapped. He pointed out that I had never done anything that vile before and had never shown signs that I would. Like a dog struck with rabies, I was overtaken by an uncontrollable force. I can't be blamed for that. I need to get help for my mental issues, not spend the rest of my life in prison. The district attorney, John Morganelli, insisted that I plotted to kill Jessica, calling it a premeditated murder. He brought up the fact that I went shopping for sex toys before the murder to prove that I planned it, as if buying sex toys is a crime in itself. He said that just because I committed a depraved crime after all those years of being a law-abiding citizen, it doesn't mean I snapped. I guess he thought that there was something dark hiding in me all along. He was convincing enough that the jury believed him. Or maybe it was those graphic tapes showing me getting a little too sexual with Jessica's body that did me in. I don't get it. By then, she had already been shot in the head. It wasn't like I was causing any harm to her anymore. She couldn't feel a thing. Either way, that jury didn't think twice about finding me guilty. It took them less than 10 minutes to come back with their verdict, as if deciding where I should spend the rest of my life wasn't something worth giving a little consideration. I was sentenced to life in prison, without the chance of parole. It took me some time, but eventually I realized how useless my attorney was. I paid Jack Mahon good money to represent me, and he did such a horrible job doing it that the jury didn't even consider my case for third-degree murder. That alone proves that I had an unfair trial. He didn't find me a single witness to testify in my defense or file any post-trial motions. So, on July 21st, 2015, I filed an appeal. By then, it was easier to remember how things happened. Back in 2014, I told the police that I was driven crazy by a sexual feeling when I picked up that gun and killed Jessica. The truth is, I was drunk and high on marijuana and psychedelic mushrooms that day. I didn't expect Jessica to visit while I was like that. It was under the wrong circumstances, the wrong place, the wrong time. Jessica stopped by to use the fax machine. We got into some stupid argument that usually wouldn't have bothered me as much as it did. In my twisted state of mind, it made me furious. I blacked out in a fit of anger. I didn't even know what I was doing. No matter what anyone else believes, the truth will always be the truth. I loved Danielle and Jessica. I would never do anything to hurt either of them. That just isn't the kind of man, not the type of man that I am. I'll forever regret what happened that day, but it wasn't a case of first-degree murder. I did not plan to murder Jessica. My brain just broke. My mind snapped. I don't deserve to spend the rest of my life behind bars without even a chance of parole because of something that was uncontrollable as that. I think it's safe to say that this week's case has been a particularly gruesome one. It begs the question, did Gregory Graf truly snap like his defense attorney argued? Or was this darkness hidden inside Gregory all along? Did he plan to murder and assault Jessica while his wife was gone? Join me next time as we explore the dark layers found within the stories of convicted killers.